We are back at the 20-year-old lake. The last time we was here was about 10 days ago, where we witnessed the fishery team actually draining and netting this lake of older fish. And as you'd expect, with a lake as old as that, it obviously threw up quite a few surprises. So this is pretty much an update on where we are now, on how the team's progressing in redeveloping this particular lake. They're just taking away another dumper of soil and silt that they're actually being taken out of here, and in just a short few days it's amazing what kind of progress they've actually made on this lake. As you can see, they've got all the platforms pretty much out now. They are only working on one bank at the moment, but it's amazing how long these legs actually needed to be to go down and stay nice and safe in that soft silt. So they've all been removed. There's quite a few things that have surfaced which they've actually found, bits of tattle and stuff, which I'll show you. But as you can see, they're actually working at this top end first. So let me show you what's been happening up here. Looking back down the lake, this was the spot where they were dragging the fish out at this end. Just so you know where we are, that is Beecher's Lake just there. And all these undercut banks have been starting to get filled in. Obviously there's more work taking place on that other bank now. I'll show you what he's doing over there in a moment, but all these undercut banks here, you can still see where there still are some here. And this bank over here has really, all the way down there, apart from this top end, has not been touched. So I'm going to show you some of those spots in a minute. But as you can see, if we just get a little bit lower, you can see the difference in depth of what they're trying to achieve. I'll show you again a little bit further when we get down this right hand bank, but down at the bottom end, that is the original depth, or the original level of the lake bed. And you can see, I mean, it's gone down at least, well, over twice again, down into where that water is. So that was the intention, to have a trench running down the centre of the lake of about 8 feet deep. That's what Aaron, the fishery owner, wanted. Obviously I'm not quite sure how precise he's going to want to be with that, and that was 10 days ago. He may have changed his mind or changed the idea of it since then. So this is the corner peg here. We've got another platform out there. Now there is quite a bit of silt and soil being dragged up this bank, but you can see the depth now that they're going to be going down to. You can see these undercut banks. This was one of the corner pegs. If I just get down here, I don't go into that soft silt too much, you can see the undercuts there, and they're even bigger than that when we go further down the lake, down to the right. So, you know, when you think you've got an idea of what certainly undercut banks are like, you know, a lot of the time, without actually getting in the water, you are kind of guessing. Now you can see where the grass ends, so that will have been a peg there. The grass will have ended, and obviously the water level would have been there. But if I just go around here, go around the front edge of it, you can see how undercut that is. Let me just show you. And that's not one of the deepest ones, to be fair. They are deeper than that further down, but even then you've got there's a good foot or so that fish could have obviously got under and got out of the way. So that's the deepest part there. That's really silty down there where the water is. And what happened was, there was no surprise that when we were here last time, the nets were going through, and we strongly suspected that the nets were missing fish. When they got the lake down to virtually empty, there was small puddles or pools like that, literally only inches deep, and you would have thought there weren't any fish there. However, it wasn't until the fishery team, Alex and Aaron, and the team actually went in with waders, and it wasn't until they were actually walking through these little puddles, they were disturbing big shoals of carp. They were literally just laying in that mud. Just looking at it on the surface, you wouldn't have thought there were any fish there. So there was no wonder that some of those nets were actually missing fish. Again, you see these banks now. Obviously this bank's not been touched yet, but they are going to be sculpted just like they are over there, which we'll have a look at in a moment. So this end, you can see the difference in depth from what the actual lake was, and that's how it's been. Massive difference, isn't it? So down here, I mean, look how deep these margins are. I had no idea that margin was as deep as that. Look how close, how deep that is, right up against the bank. That silt is super soft. You can see all the features around these tree roots. There's no wonder you sometimes got cut off or your pole rig got bust when fish went swimming around them. Has anybody lost an umbrella? There we go, that's obviously something what they've fished out. Certain bits of tattle boxes and stuff. No prizes for guessing what that was. We've got a leg here off someone's box. There we go. Feeder rest, bank stick. One or two landing net sections there. Somebody's lost a chair. There we go. I'm sure they did find other stuff as well. Oh, and a matrix riddle. There we go. The internal from a matrix riddle. Fantastic. But this end hasn't been touched yet. And you can see the differences in depth. You know when you think it's bang flat, just look at these. I don't know whether you want to call them raised mounds or raised, they're not really bars or gravel bars, but just look at the difference in depth from some of them. And then when you look at this margin, just look at the tree roots and stuff that's gone in. There we go. Has anybody, somebody must have missed a brew that day. But you can see what it's like under there. Look how undercut that is under there. So when you think you've got a corner peg and you're fishing up against that bank, there's about 2 feet of undercut there. Incredible to see lakes like this. The second part of removing those fish was the stage where you couldn't actually use the nets. The lads, the fishery team, had to get out there with chest waders on, wade through the silt and literally go through. Whenever they found one of those little pools of silt with water, with where there were carp holed up, scooped them out with the landing net, and then they transferred them into tanks. These tanks, which were full of water, once there was enough fish in there, they were then transported to other lakes around the complex, and that's how they got the fish out of here through the second phase. We've got the platforms there, as you can see, all stacked up. This is obviously the entrance point. When the digger has actually got to go into the middle of the lake, which just 2 days ago, all the lakes here were actually frozen. They were frozen over, the ground was super hard and frosty. The digger had to get out there. Obviously, with that harder ground, it must have made that job a little bit easier, but this is the access point. Obviously, a digger with tracks like that needs an exit point, an entrance and exit point into the lake, and that's obviously the spot where he's been coming in and out. But you can see what that margin's like now. When they were netting the fish out, this is the margin where we were stood. I was stood there in waders, which was literally almost up to my waist, but you can see how much deeper they're actually going now. And the idea is for that trench to run right the way down the middle for the full length of the lake, but then within 3 or 4 meters of the bank, it's then going to shelve up so that the fish are going to have different depths of water to be in, which should suit, you know, the fishing and where the fish want to be at certain times of year. Now, one of the advantages of having a huge site like this is that you've got somewhere to put all of the soil and the silt that you've actually taken out of a lake like this. And obviously just taking the silt out was going to be a big job, but they're actually digging it deeper as well. So what they're actually doing is, as they're digging the silt and all the soil out, it's then getting transported into a dumper, and then that is getting transported to another area of the site. So the next process is obviously going to be to finish off this trench down the middle, get the lake down to the sort of depths, get the contours and the sculpting right, then get these undercut banks all sculpted, and then the fishery team will be thinking about getting some water into the lake, and then they're going to be thinking about the restocking of the lake, and that's something that we're going to be here to film for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this insight. If you missed the film of when the fishery team were netting this lake, if you'd like to see what fish were in here, then I'll put that video on screen now for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this insight, and I really look forward to updating you again in a few days' time.